Well, hello there. This is Robert Nunez, Scream Names Hukana. We are going to be talking about what I've been working on, a sort of video blog. Show off the progress I've made since I've started working on my little project here. No script, we're doing it live. We're doing it raw and live. Okay. This is an action platformer with a central theme around alchemy, so item crafting is going to be a big part of the game. As such, we did get things like inventory set up pretty early in development, and even some item generation that crude ore needs a lot of work. It doesn't look good. Stone looks fine. No sound effects, no enemies. Not much of a game yet, but a lot of the work has been done on more back end sort of foundational things, making my item structs as robust as possible, especially when we get into the equipment, which is mostly working, even if there's not a lot of types of equipment. A lot of work also went into making the platforming here work pretty swell. The blue platforms here, you can go through like thin platforms, and everything else is solid. We have pushing working, we have standing on moving blocks working, and even things like squeezes are fine. Even wedges, although currently this stage is not set up to show off that because I moved some stuff around, but wedges work too. Let's go over our equipment though. That's the most recent thing I've worked on. My item structs are pretty robust. Right now, you can see this is our sigils and duplicate cards. They're essentially the weapons you'll be using in the game. We have these two are the sigils. Debug fist. You use it, and as you can see, it has the flurry trait, which means it'll actually repeat itself twice. So instead of shooting just one fist, it'll shoot three, and there'll be some randomization in the creation of the copies. But the first one always spawns in the same spot. In addition, we have the spell bomb, which I don't have an icon for yet. But what that does, which is pretty interesting, it actually fires whatever is the effect of your first sigil when it explodes. So if we throw it here, we can see it shoots out the three fists. But we have another same item, but with different traits, Gemini and Rapid. Gemini means it will spawn two traits on opposite sides of you, or two effects on opposite sides of you instead of just one. And Rapid increases the animation speed of the character action. So instead of shooting three fists, we shoot two, and they're on opposite sides. And our spell bomb will actually reflect that. We can equip two sigils and activate them with different buttons, but our spell bomb was always going to fire our first sigil slot. As far as our duplicate cards, we also have another spell bomb, but this one has another trait, a different trait, multi-shot. This will shoot a stream of three of them, so we could do it like that. There's a little bit of randomization in the angles. And if we can go ahead and change this back to the flurry, we can see we could get a lot of fists out with that one. We have some basic item generation working too. Here's what our current inventory looks like, but if we hit this thing 3 times, it'll generate some items. You may notice it's kind of flashing because it's supposed to go away after you mine it, but for debug purposes, I have it generate instantly. We also have a scroll bar that we programmed in for when our inventory gets rather big. Next up, would probably be creating another room besides this debug room, probably this sort of central hub room. That way I can get to working on creating creating smaller versions of the inventory. Truncations. That's the word. Smaller versions of the inventory that we have loaded that only have our equipment. That way we're not constantly having a full bag of hundreds of items loaded into memory. We'll only have what we need. And then after that gets going, probably work on some crafting, maybe a bit of combat. But for now, this is what we've got here, and hopefully we'll have some cooler stuff by the next update.